Returning to one of our top stories, an unprecedented number of military assets have been deployed to monitor Chinese ships operating off the Australian coast following the diversion of several commercial flights to avoid suspected live fire exercises in the Tasman Sea. Well, joining us live is Dr Glenn Kolomeitz, military lawyer and defence academic. Dr Glenn, thank you very much for joining us. So we're hearing that they're not in breach under international law. However, Richard Miles is saying that they could have been providing us with more warning. Do you agree with that?
Janie, China's under no obligation to provide warning at international law. It would have been an appropriate procedure to do so, to give us some notification, particularly with air traffic flying over the region. China did directly warn aircraft, but look, like I say, no obligation under international law. They're in international waters. As a matter of courtesy, perhaps, some notification to Australia would have been good.
All right, and what do you think in terms of the next couple of days? What are you going to be looking out closely for?
Look, China will just maintain its current course. It's set up for drills. I understand it didn't undertake those drills, but so it's surface to surface drills. This is a signal from China, really just saying, look, even without bases in your region, we can project force. So they're just sending that message to us and to New Zealand. So they'll finish this task and then make their way back home, I expect.
And how do you see our defence in terms of Army, Navy and the like?
Well, Janie, we've allowed our Navy to atrophy to the point that we could barely respond to one incident, let alone if China had projected force on two coasts, or indeed perhaps three task forces, where our Navy would be struggling. Our maritime patrol aircraft, can potentially cover. They can certainly cover the one scenario at the moment, but if it was stretched more thinly, it would be difficult. The reality is, Janie, we just don't have the ships to be able to address multiple contingencies or one major contingency.
And talk us through the vessels that have moved off the south coast of New South Wales, near where you are. Talk us through the distance and what you know.
They were sitting 340 nautical miles, so about 630 kilometres off the south coast. I understand they're off Eden, or further south now, but conducted these drills, these surface combatants, so ship-to-ship type drills at that range off our coast, international waters, which as I say, they're entitled to do. The big point here, Janie, is that this is a small task force of surface vessels, not including an aircraft carrier. So that's not including their major projection of force assets, which is carriers. So again, that's just part of the signalling. That's China saying we have this small task force, including a supply type vessel, and we could add a lot more. We could add our carriers to the equation.
So how provocative do you think this is? And it sounds like it's certainly tying in with what's happening with Ukraine. Tell us why you think that is, and what importance is this, and what again do we need to be watching out closely on?
There's a couple of key points here, Janie, and you hit the nail on the head with Ukraine. There will be a perception now that the West is weak, that Putin has won essentially in Ukraine. That'll be the perception that's being portrayed. In other words, it'll be China saying, well, there's now a multipolar or multi-power global order taking place. That's part of the messaging. Secondly, the fact that they're sitting between Australia, these Chinese vessels are between Australia and New Zealand, ties in with China entering into a strategic relationship with the Cook Islands, which was previously, or it had a protectorate role with New Zealand. So look, that's part of this package by China. It's very much messaging, and there's a direct nexus, not coincidental, with what's happening in Ukraine and certainly with that Cook Islands negotiation.
And President Donald Trump has claimed both the UK Prime Minister and French President have done nothing to end the war in Ukraine, and there's certainly talks between America and Russia so far, which haven't included other countries. The US envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, has called Volodymyr Zelensky a courageous leader, and the comments of Ukraine's president come after Trump called him a dictator who refuses to hold elections earlier this week. We're hearing elections in Ukraine can't be held during war. But what's your take on this, and what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that Donald Trump is going to force an election on Ukraine?
Firstly, there was certainly a contrast between what General Kellogg said about Zelensky and what Putin has said. There's some bad blood between Putin and Zelensky, undoubtedly, going back to some of the last US election days. But putting that aside, the fact that there's been no election, it makes perfect sense. In the middle of a war, you don't need that sort of disruption. I suspect Trump will try and force an election on Ukraine by some coercive method. The problem there, Janie, that I see is that one of the potential contenders for the Ukraine presidency, Viktor Medvedchuk, is pro-Kremlin. So and that's exactly what Putin. That's exactly one of Putin's aims. It was to change the regime in Kyiv to a pro-Russian regime and to take a territory which Putin claims is Russian. So, again, this could be playing right into Putin's hands.
Dr Glenn Kolomeitz, always great to see you. Thank you.